Welcome to this Python tutorial on Edenites. So today we are going to be creating a guessing game using Python. This is a beginner's course, an absolute beginner's course. So we are not going to be creating any GUI for now, but we're just going to write the functionality of this game using Python. So I'll be using Visual Studio, PyCharm. You can use any other text editor, but I'll be using PyCharm for this tutorial. So let me just go over what the game will be about. So we are going to have the computer generate a random number. Then when the computer actually has a random number, then we are going to ask our user to guess what that number is. So it will be like enter the number, and if the user enters a number that is higher than the random number the computer generated, our game is going to tell our user that the number you entered is too high or maybe too big, something like that. If it is too small, it will say like the answer you gave or the guess you gave is too small. And we also want to keep track of the answer he's given, that our player can only play for a certain number of times. Like for example, maybe you are only allowed to guess a number 3 times, or maybe 4 times, or maybe 2 times, something like that. So this is what we are going to be creating, just this simple game where the computer generates a random number, then the user has to guess what the number is. Then in case the user gets the wrong number, the game is supposed to give the user a hint if that number is bigger or if that number is lesser. So this is just the rundown of what we are going to be creating today. So now the first thing we want to do now is to create a random number. So now the first thing, for our computer to generate a random number, we are going to be using the random keyword. So to use it, we need to import it. Actually, we do not need to import it, but I just want to import it. Import random. So we should then name a variable to save whatever random number that we are going to that our computer is going to generate. So let me just name this variable random underscore number. So this will be equals to random dot runInt. Then now this takes 2 parameters. It takes the range of number to actually generate from. Like for now, I want it to generate just from 0 to 9, meaning whatever number our interpreter is going to generate, or the computer is going to generate, is going to be between 0 and 9. Let's test this and let's see what we get. So print random number. So let's save it and let's run it. So we have 9 here now. So let's run it again. We have 8 now. You see, there's no way of knowing what the computer is going to choose next. The number just come in random. So let's continue. So now we don't need to print anything. So now we want to create a variable to actually keep track of how many times our user have guessed. So for example, we'll have a variable named count. This count is going to keep track of how many times a particular user actually guessed a number. So the count is going to be equals to 0 because of once the game starts, the count should be equal to 0. But when the user actually gets like 1 or 2 times, then the count should increment, something like that. So to achieve that incrementation, we will use what is called a while loop. So this while loop is going to keep running till a certain condition is met. So now the condition for this while loop to stop running will be if count, for this to continue running, is if count is not equal to 3. As far as count is not equal to 3, this while loop is going to keep running. So what do we actually want to run in this while loop? So the first thing, we want to actually get the input from the user. So now let's name this variable guess, because this will be saving the guess from the user. So we want to get the input from the user, so let's get the input. So the prompt is going to be like, guess a number from 0 to 10. So I think that is good. So we are telling the user guess a number from 0 to 10, meaning whatever number you're going to guess should be from 0 to 9. So what next do we want to get now? So now once we are able to actually get the user input, we want to actually check if the input is actually equal to the random number generated, or if it's less than. So we'll achieve this using an if statement. So we say if guess greater than random number. So now I want it to print something. It's going to tell us that our answer is wrong first, then tell us number is bigger, or rather your guess is bigger. So now we want to add another condition, an else if or an elif. So now we'll check if guess is actually lesser than the random number. So now it should be lesser. So now we'll now have an else, meaning if the number is not bigger and the number is not lesser, definitely to be equal to. So else print correct. We want to print correct. Answer is, we are going to do a string concatenation here. So I think everything is looking good. Let's test this game and see how it's actually working for now. So I put 2. Okay, I'm having a problem. I'm kind of comparing an integer to a string. This input is actually giving us a string rather than an integer. So what we need is a number, not a string. So we need to convert whatever input our user gives us into an integer. So we'll do that using the int method. Using the int method, so now we have converted whatever input is passed to an int. So let's save this and try it again. Now let's enter 2. Number is bigger, let's enter 5. Number is bigger. So if 2 is bigger, and if 2 is bigger, that means let's try 1. Answer is 1. That means I'm correct. Answer is 1. So the game is working. So now the next thing we want to do is to actually make sure that our players does not exceed 3 times. Like how many times our player gets to try, it does not exceed 3 times. So let's so now what we want to do now is to increment count. Make sure that count is actually keeping track. Whenever it runs, it keeps tracks. So whenever this code inside this while loop is run, the value of count will be incremented by 1. So now we can actually check if count is equal to 3 to be sure that our user actually still has a chance to try again. So now we want to actually tell our user if count is actually like up to 3 and you've not yet guessed what the number is. Like we want the game to stop, to tell you game over, like game over, this is the end of game for you. So let's achieve that. Let's do that. So now for that we'll write an if statement here. This if statement is going to check if count is equal to 2. I'm using 2 because of our computer is going to start counting from 0, so it's not actually going to get to 3, it's going to get to 2. So if count is equal to 2 and guess is still not equal to random number, that means we need to tell you game over. So we need to tell the player it's game over for you. But another thing I want, whenever we get the correct answer, I want the game to actually stop. Like we can see here, when I actually got the correct answer, which was 1, I want it actually prompts me to enter another number. So we actually want the loop to actually stop immediately we actually get the correct number. So how we'll achieve this, we'll use the break. This break is going to break out of the while loop immediately that we have a correct answer. So this is practically how the game is going to work. So let's test the game and see if everything is working perfectly. So now I'm asked to guess the number. So let me guess the number 1. Sorry. 1. Let's say your number is lesser. So let me try 4. They say my number is still lesser. Let me try 7. The correct answer is 7. So let me actually try, let's actually print whatever random number we're actually getting, so I will actually verify if our code is actually right. So let's print the random number the computer is actually generating. So the random number now is 1. So let me get 2. Oh, it's telling me that 2 is bigger, because 2 is actually bigger, the answer is bigger. So let me try -1. It's telling me that my answer is lesser. So now let me actually try another number, another wrong answer. So it's still asking me to guess instead of actually ending the loop. So how are we supposed to end the loop? So it's supposed to actually see this line, but let's actually see why it's not seeing this line. Let's print the value of count, so that we'll actually see what count actually is. Whenever this game is run, this one I run. So let's come here. Let's print count. We're having a problem. Okay, here is the error. I mistakenly added a backslash. So now the answer is 3. Let me just try guessing it at first. 3. And the game actually caught. That is good. So let's try again. Let me guess a wrong number. Now the value of count is 0. So let me guess another number. Maybe 6. The value of count is 1. Let me get another number. 2. Game over. It's actually working now. It tells me game over. So it's working. Our program is working now. Our program keeps track of the user input, how many times a player actually tries. You can see we weren't able to guess the number in the three trial quiz that we were given. It gave me a response telling me game over. So now there's another thing I would like us to add to this game. So now, for example, remember, this game can only work if an integer is actually given. If something like a string is given, we get an error. So I do not want our game to actually give such an error, like whenever maybe a user made a mistake and maybe enters a letter instead of a number, then the whole game just crashes. So we are going to try to filter out whenever this error is made. We will use the try except statement. So now we are going to try then except so now let's print let's tell them first your input is invalid. Guess, or rather your guess must be a number. So let's save this and run it. So let me put a letter. Everything is working correctly. So now it's telling me that it must be a number. So let me put 3. Answer is lesser. Let me put 7. Game over because I've actually exhausted the 3 trials. So I think the game is actually going fine. So everything is going perfectly fine. So I think we don't need to print this thing out anymore. So this is how we've created this simple guessing game using Python. We talked about while loop. We saw how we can actually use while loop. A while loop just keep repeating a particular line of code or block of code till a particular condition is met. We saw how we can use the random built-in class, where we have the randint as a method. So we talked about the try except. We saw how we use the try except to filter out errors, where to filter out an error maybe when a user enters the wrong input. So as I said, this is a beginner's tutorial, and if this tutorial is useful to you, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching.